Hey guys, it's Ryan Alford. Welcome to the latest edition of the RADCAST. I am excited for myself and my children a bit today from a brand perspective. I'm joined by James Gregson, who is the creative director of digital at Lego. What's up, James?
What's up? Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, man. You know you're gonna get it. I mean, every time, like especially a guy with kids, as we talked pre-episode, four boys under the age of 11. Look, it's you know how many Legos are in my house. Like I could build a bridge from here to Connecticut.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I was just on a creative brainstorm the other day talking about how around Christmas time I got a ping pong table, and I think that ping pong table lasted like until New Year's Eve before it was a Lego table. So I get it. I was in that sweet spot. My brother and I were in that sweet spot. My three kids under 3 years old are not quite in that sweet spot yet. I'm just trying to not have them swallow Lego.
Yes, God bless your soul, doing that with the twins and the daughter. But yes, I both bless you and curse you because I'm a big guy and I walk around our house and it's a long way to the floor for me, and you don't know how many in the foot. Ow! What is that? It's a Lego piece like stuck to the foot.
What's the saying? Misery loves company. I don't think you're alone in that feeling. I can't speak to it much more than that.
Yeah. Well, cool. I trust you guys are doing well and living in the new normal that we have here. Unfortunately, with COVID, I've seen Legos outreaches and things like that. But I trust you're. Looks like at home, like many people in the corporate world, especially.
Yeah, we've been at home since around March. I've been into the office I think 3 times since March. The office is somewhat slowly opening up, but who knows how that's going to evolve.
Well, James, let's get started for our audience. Obviously, they know Lego, but let's start with this is really about, James and your story and kind of your background. I know you've been in digital and social a long time, but maybe let's just start down that traditional path of your background and history in the marketing world and what's led you to Lego today.
Sure. I will say it was definitely not traditional. I was anything but an academic. I hated school. School was a vehicle to delay work, I think, to some extent, or to party, to be quite honest. Um,
Guilty.
yeah, it is what it is. But I graduated with the very transferable skills of computer animation with a minor in painting. Um,
Yeah. Doesn't everyone have that? I was like, yeah.
Funnily enough, I actually started in college with advertising design, which is basically what I do now, but I just didn't find that interesting. Go figure. But long story short, I was in college when Facebook came up, when it was only for college kids. And I was interning at a marketing agency, and there was a social networking company that was wanting to launch in the US. And at that time, I'm going to date myself, it was about 15 years ago, or even more than that. Social networking and social media was like not even a thing. Bloggers were kind of a thing, but like that wasn't even a thing. But long story short, I completely BS'd my way into a new business pitch as an intern because I claimed to know everything there was about social media and social networking because I was on Facebook, but no other marketing executive in this large, publicly traded marketing organization, publicly owned marketing organization knew about what social networking was. And that
You were doing social media the way everyone does social media now. Fake it till you make it. Like how many multimillionaire success pages do we follow? So you were well ahead of your time.
Sure. But yeah, so long story short, that sort of got me kickstarted, and it sort of really, I think it identified something in me that I was like, oh, that I know a lot more about this naturally than many other executives do. And similar to my background, I straddle that line between the data-driven piece, because that's so critically important to social media and community management and paid social, with obviously the creative background that I have, or the sort of creative skill set that I have. I basically worked all the way through the agency world in New York City, publicly owned, privately owned startup. Had enough of the agency world, as most people do, decided it would be a great idea to start up my own business. It was great fun, 5 years of, deciding what I wanted to do, who I wanted to work with, and how I wanted to work. And it was super successful. I didn't have health insurance, but it was super successful. And then through that, I had my own clients. I had, I worked for as a consultant for large agencies on projects, and I also sort of white labeled my services for smaller agencies, and that's how I got connected to Lego. I started working with their former PR agency based on the West Coast, and then started working on Lego projects through them, and then an opportunity opened up on the social team at Lego, and I joined them.
That's awesome. Where does your creative background? I know you're overseeing multiple disciplines. Are you naturally a designer, writer, videographer, all of the above, or is there a?
I think you sort of alluded to it before, but I think most social media generalists would argue that they are storytellers, right? If you're really going to focus on something, I think that's where, and most traditional creatives will hate me for saying this, right? But I am like that short form, snackable content storyteller, right? Because as we all know, anyone on social or digital, you've got 3 seconds, 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds to grab someone's attention. If you don't, you're not doing your job, right? That is not the traditional, creative TVC style creative direction. So it probably pains a lot of traditional creatives to hear me say that, but that is what it is.
How's your growth? And I know you've had a few positions there within Lego. Talk about some of your growth and the differences in the positions and kind of roles.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, and it sort of speaks to what I was talking about earlier. Social media at Lego was sort of originally this sort of beginning to end solution, or end to end solution, right? Everything from channel strategy to community management to some creative development to channel engagement to paid media to analytics. It was all managed within one global team that I was a part of. And that was very effective for getting things done in a very large, highly matrixed organization. That was not so effective in making a lot of friends internally, getting buy-in from regional marketing departments, and sort of scaling to a level that we probably needed to scale to go beyond our initial growth. So we've since sort of been, I don't want to say like obliterated, but we've since been broken up, and various departments have been moved into sort of larger departments that make sense, right? So for example, engagement has been moved into the customer service team. Social media channel strategy has been moved into the strategy team within the internal creative agency. And then so my new role now has been moved into the internal creative agency as we try and sort of build out a larger understanding of what digital and social content development looks like, both as an internal creative team and supporting sort of external creation as well.
It seems to me like, I know you guys have a lot of employees. It just seems that the ecosystem of Lego is overwhelming. Like from the outside looking in, and I know you have your silos and everyone has their roles, but is it just as daunting as it seems, or is it I know there's organization in the hugeness for in my really great grammar, but is it just as crazy? Is it just as gigantic as it seems?
I think it is. Yeah, that's definitely a fair feedback. I think on the flip side, if I'm going to be super positive, I think it speaks to the scale of the opportunity, right? If you look at someone like, Apple, right, as a brand that sort of really brings to life what a digital ecosystem should look like, and how that sort of brand experience is replicated at every physical and digital touch point. That's, I think, something that we're aspiring to, from a digital ecosystem standpoint, potentially simplify and make it feel less daunting, but also make it feel high quality and luxury to some extent, because that's what consumers have come to expect from the product itself. It is a very high-end quality product, and we want that same experience from every single time you log onto the website to buy a product to visiting a retail store. So the short answer is yes, I think it is a bit daunting because there are so many, in some cases, to be frank, siloed digital outputs. But there is a lot of energy around what our digital ecosystem should look like moving forward, what digital transformation means to us at Lego, and then how, from a content marketing standpoint, how my team can be supportive of that.
I will say I'm going to add one to the ecosystem, having been there, Legoland. Actually, thoroughly delivered on the overall experience. Like, to this day my kid's favorite place that we've gone to. We've gone to all the different ones, which in a COVID world seems crazy, but hopefully we'll be back there soon. But so you guys do a terrific job of carrying it through at all levels. Have you spent any time down there?
That is the goal. I've been to the one in Orlando. I'm excited to go to the one in New York that's opening soon. That'll be our newest one. But yeah, yes, I mean, that's that physical manifestation of the product experience, right? From bringing it more from building or consumption from an entertainment or TV, show style environment to that physical experience. It's cool to see come to life.
Can we or can we not break any details on Lego the Movie 3? Will that be part of the RADCAST today? Will there be any giveaways here?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Okay. All right. I went there. I asked. I can tell my kids I asked.
Yes. Patiently
waiting like a kid on Christmas Eve. Absolutely none. So how many different channels do you like? How many different social media profiles is there for the Lego brand? I mean, is it as many as I would imagine?
I can't remember the last count. I think you'll be surprised to learn that it is not that many.
Okay.
Right. So at a very basic level across Instagram, for example, we have, I'm gonna guess 7 or 8. Not that many.
Oh wow!
Now, obviously, they're regionalized, right? Well, sorry. So on Instagram, no, 7 or 8 is probably fair. There's not that many, and that is by design, right? I think, and I know this by speaking to many other colleagues of mine at major similar sized brands or bigger. They have upwards of 300 different social channels, and it becomes immeasurable, right? Immeasurable and not manageable. And I think we have a very different approach to that, right? So for YouTube, for example, we have a singular brand channel and maybe five or six sub brand channels off of that. And that is by design, right? It makes a whole series of number of things easier. Obviously, that channel strategy will likely evolve, and that's not ultimately my remit or my team's remit. But yes, we have a somewhat simplified channel strategy by design.
That's smart. We've worked with a lot of brands where that has not come to fruition, and it's a nightmare of organization and keeping things to the brand standards and every other notion. So hats off to keeping that streamlined. What's in your current position? What's success look like? Like what's the day-to-day charge?
That's a really good question, and something that I just shared in a fairly large global internal meeting about the fact that traditional creative has a very different performance metric than digital creative, right? Especially social creative, you know very quickly, maybe within a minute, within 60 seconds, whatever it is, whether a social post is going to perform well or not, right? And that's based on benchmarking, right? So one of the things that I harp with my team is I get very upset when I hear things like, and this, social post performed really well, like, or it had, 500,000 likes. Okay, compared to what? What's that in comparison to? Is that, up X% on the last post? What's our benchmark, right? So I talk about, success benchmarking a lot, right? And yes, obviously there isn't an apples to apples comparison. It's difficult. Certainly when you look at content being published for a high affinity audience versus a low affinity audience. And organically speaking, a high affinity audience is going to live on your social channels and engage in that content higher than a low affinity audience is. But at a very basic level, my creatives need to know very quickly what is good and what is bad, right? And benchmarks help to do that, right? So at a basic level, we have an engagement rate benchmark across Instagram and Facebook for videos, and across Facebook and Instagram for images, and then a organic reach benchmark across videos and Facebook, split by Facebook and Instagram, right? That's a very perverse, basic way of looking at it. But as I said, it's the best quick litmus test without having a whole bunch of analysts, data analysts looking into it, of how we can determine what was good and what was bad.
I love it. The benchmarking, I preach that to my team. Vanity metrics drive me crazy. So you're preaching to the choir on this side. I think it does tee up, something we talked about in, kind of our pre-show outline. But I think in your role and maybe just your perspective with all your experience, we have a lot of discussions here, both with brands we work with, and I see it, especially in the coffers of LinkedIn and otherwise, this performance marketing versus brand. And performance marketing has become the, buzzword. I joked and have been posting recently smart ass feedback to, we were so desperate for attribution in marketing, we had to put the performance word on the front end of it. The C-suite required an ROI on every dollar. I feel like it's zapping a little bit of the creativity that comes with true branding. However, all of my biases aside, I would like to know, both in your role and just your general perspective on both of those.
Yeah, it's a good topic, right? I think, for all of the success that, let's say, organic social drove businesses and marketing, I think it's also been potentially a downfall, right? Because, once, the value of organic reach has been essentially, declined or diminished, there too has the theoretical ROI of what we do as marketers or as content creators. I think there's a number of variables at play, right? I think the industry as a whole is full of a lot of crap, potentially, right? And I think there's a lot of people selling the value in social in a way that gets people burned, or in a way that sets up the honest ones of us for failure to some success. So that's where I think, and this comes back to my experience when I ran my own business. When you're running, let's say, a Facebook page for a brand, this is not a hypothetical, this is real, for a clothing brand, a high-end clothing brand for kids, that was being paid, and you were being paid by the founders of said brand out of their pocket every month to manage that presence. You better be sure that that presence delivers some element of value. Now, if you're not able to define what that value is in a way that makes them feel comfortable and happy with giving you X number of dollars a month, then they're not going to be, your client for very long. And that client specifically, I won't use their name, but they were a client of mine for 3.5 years, right? And they were my longest retainer business that I had. And that was because every month I delivered a report that defined the value of what I did. It's not just this post got you this many likes, or this post drove you this many likes. It was, we drove this much traffic to your website, and therefore potentially drove this much, level of stick-to-itiveness, whatever it is that define. My point being is, it's both, you've got to be very strict about what your objectives are, and then ensuring that you are communicating those objectives very clearly. And it's so easy to water down those objectives by providing too much data or just not being super succinct with what you're trying to deliver.
What do you think about, and Lego, and I'm glad you brought up the other brands you've worked on, because Lego was, in a unique position, being the size that it is, that, you don't have to scream, our Legos are on sale, versus a very cool brand video that's, elevating the ecosystem or whatever. But for other brands that don't have that, it's what's kind of just crushing my soul a little bit is the rush to the bottom of of price and features versus call me old school, but the "Can you hear me now" campaign, or the or Jared at Subway before he became a pedophile. like the campaign aspect, the brand aspect of marketing seems to be, again, maybe not for brands like Lego, but seems to be diminishing. I don't know if that's just the nature of
brand building. Was easy, everybody would do it, right? Yeah. Brand building is a marathon, right? It's not a sprint. It takes time. It takes tests and learns. It takes failures to figure it out, right? I think, again, to some extent, the social media world and the influencers behind successful brands, in some cases, have ruined this for the rest of us, because they've made it super successful because they became a viral sensation, and I literally just came out of my meeting before this, was talking about the TikTok ocean spray example, and how, all of a sudden we've got this, how do I go viral moment picking up again, right? Everyone wants their, Super Bowl Oreo moment, which is great. I totally get it. Of course, I want to be behind one of those moments. Absolutely. But that isn't a strategy, right? That's an unattainable strategy. It's the process, and having the process and the team behind that, and the strategy behind that enables a moment like that. But yeah, it's a tough one.
What's been that you could talk about, maybe your most exciting project at Lego, or something you're most proud of?
I mean, listen, at the end of the day, working the eight-year-old version of myself does not appreciate the job that I have, right? I was that kid that was obsessed with playing with Lego for hours upon hours. I had, those cans of popcorn you used to get. I used to get them for Christmas that were they were like corporate gifts. They were split into like cheddar popcorn, caramel popcorn, and salt popcorn. I very quickly threw that popcorn out and made those like big barrels of Lego pieces, right? And as I used to use that ping pong table to build Lego. So I think for me, being a part of a brand that probably defines purpose-driven branding is the best part about working for Lego. I think a project most recently that I'm really proud of is, how we really leaned into supporting families stuck at home during COVID, which was Let's Build Together. And it was all about the premise that, everyone's routines were, completely messed up. Kids didn't have routines. People were stuck at home with little to do. So, maybe pause from Netflix a little bit and, start building with Lego. And there was a whole bunch of sort of engagement, supportive, related content to help people pass the time.
I love it. And it's so relevant with COVID and everything else, which leads me a little bit towards, again, I know you're in a leadership position. Talk about your leadership style and, your growth in that area, and kind of navigating, maybe as relevant as is COVID, but how you've been navigating leadership through COVID and just in general, talk a little bit about that.
Sure. So in general, I am a pretty straight shooter. I'm super transparent, and maybe you could spin that in an interview related term as I'm very authentic, right? But I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's a value, because if you report into me or you work with me, you understand what I'm trying to say, and I'm not trying to get to another point without being very direct. I don't, I see. Obviously, I'm sensitive to giving the right type of feedback in the right sort of way. But I do think that's at least a unique element to my leadership style. I think as any leaders that are dealing with what we're dealing with, it's wild, right? I'm gonna raise my hand right now and say, like, and I am transparent with my team about this, right? I've got 3 kids under 3. I have literally had like 2 hours of sleep, jumped on a 4 o'clock in the morning meeting for a massive campaign, and been fried and absolutely melted down. But I think it's about being honest with yourself and making sure that you're checking in with everyone, right? So we do everything from, I have daily like coffee hours or office hours. Anyone from my team can join in. I'm not there every day, but it just gives an opportunity to see someone's face and maybe not talk about work. We try not to talk about work, never really talk about podcasts or TV or food. Yeah, and I think it's about also being creative, right? So, I think the thing that I've struggled with is creative inspiration to some extent. I mean, I'm stuck in these 4 walls every day. And, I'm lucky that I have a dedicated office space in my house, right? I think back to being in New York City in my apartment, where my desk was in my bedroom and my desk drawers were full of underwear and socks because I didn't have closet space, right? But not everyone has the same setup as I do from a home office, right? So it's checking in with people and making sure that they are doing okay. I think it's humanizing leadership a little bit more so than you ever would before. We've done everything from like get lunch socially distanced in the parking lot of our office that was closed when it wasn't cold, to we're renting out a movie theater because you can do that now for like upwards of no more than 20 people. And you can watch a classic movie. So I think we're going to watch Jurassic Park as a team in a whole movie theater. That's certainly one of the things I hate about COVID is I can't go to the movies. I used to love going to the movies. But so yeah, I think there's a number of things where you've just got to break it up, right? It's a burn, right? It's a slow burn. And I think certainly as we get into this, I don't want to call it a second spike of COVID, but the winter time, I think it's going to become an issue again. So I think it's just staying very close to everyone individually.
You talked about it a little bit. Creative inspiration is, where do you get yours? Or, you answered a little bit, but are there brands that keep up with? I see Nike there on your shirt. Shameless plug for them, I guess. But yes.
That's fine. Yeah, no, I think I definitely like, I'm at the end of the day, I'm a content consumer, right? Yes, I also work in the content generation business, but for better or for worse, I think it's for better. I watch probably an hour's worth of YouTube on my personal time every day. Now, I'm not reading like the best of market. I'm not watching the best of marketing videos or stuff like that. But my brain, again, for better or for worse, I think it's for better, can't help try and understand the process of how is that video being delivered to me, right? How is that algorithm serving that piece of content to me? Why is this content engaging to me? Why have I not turned it off yet? What video shows up next in that algorithm? All those components, what pre-roll happened? Was that a good piece of pre-roll? Did I fast forward? That whole experience, again, for better, for worse, sort of inspires my day-to-day, right? Obviously, there's the the destinations that I go to, the clear destinations I go to, like, LinkedIn or Harvard Business Review or Ad Age for, the hit you in your face type inspiration. But I think it's that passive inspiration that I take uh, great value in, because I, as a consumer, I'm consuming this content um, as not a professional, but as a consumer. And I think that's that sweet spot that I'm trying to understand in the work that we do.
My wife hates me because I walk her through reverse the creative brief for every commercial that comes on. I tell her this is what consumers thought before. This is what they're trying to make them think. This is how they want them to think, feel, and act. And here's the main idea. Like, I literally do, because I see it. It's hard to take off the blinders of the job. But it also makes me a smarter marketer, kind of understanding those same things, like you said. But
yeah, I mean, listen, it's everything from, right. I listen to a sports podcast, right, and I'm not, and for what it's worth, I get pained by podcast advertising. Sorry if you have advertising in your podcast, but I take great inspiration because this specific podcast, has done what I believe is, the right way of brand integration, right? And it has become an integrated part of their podcast, right? And it's not that 15-second spot that they're reading off a piece of paper that is so clearly vapid and unengaged. Sorry again for anyone that does this, right? And it harkens back to the Samsung and Casey Neistat relationship, right? Like, that is influencer marketing done right. I don't know the financials behind that relationship originally, but it wasn't an ad. It didn't become an ad. It became an integrated part of his content journey, right? And that is how I think the future of advertising should be addressed, certainly in that sort of social influencer space.
Totally agree. Well, I know we kept you a little long, but I do want to ask you, is there anything that you're watching trends wise? I know you've got the proliferation of TikTok and Reels and the short form video, like, it's coming at us with a fire hose, and can only imagine the scale and scope you guys are dealing with. But anything you're seeing or wrapping your head around for 2021?
Not specifically. I mean, I think, listen, we're all waiting to see how the economy reacts to COVID. I think that's going to be a big one. Obviously, some sort of election might have something to do with that as well.
No, I can't get here fast enough. Let's just call it like it is.
So I think that's definitely going to have a potential impact. I think, right now, a lot of the social channels need probably to look at themselves in the mirror a little bit and figure that stuff out. Speaking from my personal perspective. But no, I mean, I can't speak to specific trends. I think, the pivot of the event marketing world is going to be really interesting, right? And how that evolves. I don't think physical events, Comic-Con, South by Southwest are going to happen next year. So that's 2 years without, marquee moments in, event marketing. And I'm not sure anyone's really figured out the solve for that. And I think, honestly, there isn't a solve for that, but there's going to be a need. There's going to need to be a reallocation of that money somewhere. But for what it's worth, TikTok is the most fascinating platform of all time. I still don't think brands have really figured it out, right? From my consumer experience of TikTok, the brand integration is obviously very influencer heavy. But even from an algorithm standpoint, if I'm scrolling through, I'm going to say I've seen 3 pieces of branded content, like produced from a brand by a brand on TikTok. So I think there's a long ways to go for brands to figure out their space to play. But the recent, I think it was today, the partnership with Spotify is going to have some pretty massive implications.
Yeah, of course, that marriage of music and video, and you're 100% right. I hate to say, I would never say this normally, but I think right now the best integration is if you just let the influencer do what they would normally do, and if they just have a Lego T-shirt on, or and I like right now, like is basic as I would never say that about anything else typically, but when you get them into doing unnatural things, as much as everything on TikTok is somewhat unnatural, but it's natural to that platform. Anything that's just not organic and real comes off so I don't know, just played up, And
listen, it's a fascinating social experiment, TikTok. As is a lot of influencer marketing, to be frank. But they're no joke. The data behind that platform is super impressive. I think the other trends maybe I think I'm sad to see evolve. I think podcasts are being hit pretty hard just because of the evolution of people's commutes, right, and the impact that it has on podcast consumption. But they were having quite the wave, right, pre-COVID. So I'm excited for that, and it was resulting in really, really great content, right? So I'm excited. As is everyone, I'm a little excited to bring back some normalcy to our routines, that then bring some normalcy into marketing.
Yeah, as a podcast host, I totally agree with that last one. But we've seen what's interesting is our subscribers have gotten more loyal, but the growth of the subscribers has slowed a bit, and So, and I think it's, we will at least chalk it up to the natural disasters of what's happening. Has nothing to do with the wonderfulness of the content of, especially.
I hope I help with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The death of the commute is a real thing, right? One's commute. I used to spend a little over 2 hours every day commuting, right? And that was a content consumption moment. Right. Yes, I was driving, and no, I wasn't looking at YouTube, but I was listening to podcasts on that time, and that time I haven't gotten back. I wish I could have it back.
Yeah, I know, right? I'm sure, especially with home with the 3 kids, and I think you've inspired me. We were thinking about this anyway, but I think we're going to do the definitive podcast on the state of TikTok soon. So we'll send you a link. And. Maybe use some quotes and different things from this episode. But
sure.
James, just a pleasure. Really appreciate your time. Would love to stay in touch with you. I follow you on LinkedIn. Let's stay in touch and maybe do a follow up here in the coming months, and hopefully with a rebound in the world. But best of luck with those 3 little ones. And we'll talk to you real soon. How can everyone keep up with you though? Let's get that. Let's tell everybody how to keep up with James.
You can reach out to me across socials at JLW Greg. So that's LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. JLW Greg. Perfect. Yeah, thanks for the invite. I appreciate the time, and I guess stay safe is the sign off these days.
Exactly. All right, guys, that's the episode for RADCAST. We'll see you next time.